You know, there's this lingering cultural hangover where we still kind of view video games as the ultimate time sink.
Hmm.
Even if you're a gamer, you probably have that tiny voice in the back of your head saying, I should be doing something productive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that feeling.
Oh, absolutely. The old rot your brain argument.
Yeah.
It's remarkably persistent. We tend to separate play and work into these two completely different boxes.
Exactly. But what if I told you that while you were feeling a little guilty about that weekend civilization marathon, the U.S. Army was using the same kind of mechanics to recruit the next generation of soldiers?
Okay.
Or that scientists were using gamers to solve biological puzzles that, supercomputers couldn't crack for a decade?
Then I'd say we're ready to dismantle that hangover. Because today, we aren't talking about escapism. We're talking about utility. We're diving into the ecosystem of serious games.
And we have the definitive roadmap for this journey. We are analyzing Introduction Osterius Game, the second edition, by Quentin Alvarez and Damien Jaudy. These two have basically written the Bible on how video games are being hijacked, their word, not mine, for purposes that have nothing to do with entertainment.
Hijacked is a strong word, but it fits perfectly here. Alvarez and Jaudy do a brilliant job of mapping out this landscape. They aren't just listing cool educational games. They're providing a rigorous framework, a taxonomy really, to understand how we move from Pac-Man to games that train surgeons and manage disaster relief.
It's a massive shift, so we're going to cover the military-industrial complex's role in this, which is huge.
It's where it all starts, really.
Then we'll look at how games are crowdsourcing actual scientific breakthroughs. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what actually counts as a serious game. Because it turns out just, slapping a math quiz into a platformer doesn't cut it.
Definitely not. That is what we call chocolate-covered broccoli. It just doesn't work. The authors argue that for a game to be truly serious, the utility has to be baked into the very DNA of the design.
So let's start there then, the definition. Because serious game sounds like an oxymoron, right?
Like jumbo shrimp.
Exactly. But the authors propose a specific equation to define this beast.
They do. And for anyone who likes clean logic, it's very satisfying. They define a serious game as utility scenario plus video game.
Utility scenario plus video game. It sounds simple, but I feel like the utility part is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It is. The video game part is the vessel, the graphics, the interaction, the fun loop. But the utility scenario is the directive. It's the intention to move away from pure play. It's a script designed to teach, to persuade, or to gather data.
And they have to be integrated.
Oh, coherently. You can't just have them sitting side by side.
Right. So if I make a game where you jump on turtles, but every time you die, a text box pops up with a fact about the War of 1812, that's not a serious game.
No. That is just a bad game with a textbook glued to it. In a true serious game, the gameplay is the lesson. The mechanic reinforces the message.
To help us categorize the ones that work, Alvarez and Jaudy introduce a classification system they call the GPS model, which I assume is not about finding the nearest Starbucks.
Not quite. It stands for gameplay, purpose, and sector. It's a way to coordinate exactly what kind of digital object you're looking at.
Okay, let's break that down, because I found the G part gameplay really interesting. They don't just say gaming, they split it into two Latin terms, ludus and paideia.
Yes, this is essential game theory. Ludus is what most of us think of when we say game. It's structured, it has strict rules, it has a clear objective, and most importantly, it evaluates you. You win, you lose, you get a high score.
So like Tetris or Super Mario?
Tetris, Super Mario, Monopoly.
Okay, so if there's a game over screen or a scoreboard, it's likely ludus.
Precisely. On the other end of the spectrum, you have paideia. This is closer to play or a toy. It's an open sandbox. There's no referee telling you if you're doing it right.
Oh, like SimCity.
Exactly like SimCity or The Sims. You can build a utopia or you can burn the kitchen down. The game doesn't judge you. It just simulates the consequences.
That's a crucial distinction. Because a flight simulator for a pilot, that feels like paideia, right? It's a sandbox where they practice.
It is.
But a combat simulator where you have to qualify with a certain score, that's ludus.
Spot on. And the authors note that if a serious application uses paideia, that open-ended structure, they classify it as serious play. If it uses ludus rules in winning, it's a serious game.
Got it. So that's G. What about P?
P is purpose. Permet D, what does it allow you to do? Is the game designed to broadcast a message? Is it designed to train a skill? Or, and this is the growing category, is it designed to collect data?
And S is just the sector.
Right. Defense, health, education, politics. So when you combine them, you get a specific profile. You might have a ludus-based training game for the defense sector.
It's like a biological classification for software.
Yeah.
It really organizes the brain.
It helps cut through the marketing noise and lets us see what the tool is actually doing.
Speaking of the defense sector, we can't talk about this topic without addressing the 800-pound gorilla in the room. The book points to one specific title that really kickstarted the modern serious game industry.
You are referring to America's Army.
Released July 4th, 2002. Talk about wearing your patriotism on your sleeve.
The date was no accident, and neither was the price tag. $7 million to develop, which was a real budget back then, but it was released completely free.
And we have to clarify, this wasn't some clunky educational software. I remember seeing this when it came out. It looked like a blockbuster. It looked like Counter-Strike or Call of Duty.
That was the genius of it. The U.S. Army realized that a 30-second TV spot during the Super Bowl costs millions, and you probably ignore it or go get a snack. But if they spent that money on a high-quality game, potential recruits would voluntarily spend dozens, maybe hundreds of hours engaging with their brand.
It's arguably the most effective marketing campaign in military history. But the book points out something deeper than just branding. It argues that the game mechanics themselves were the message.
This goes right back to our ludus discussion. In most commercial shooters, say Quake or Doom, you run around, you shoot anything that moves, you die, you respawn instantly. It's chaotic.
It's individualistic.
Totally. If America's Army had played like that, it would have failed its utility scenario.
Because the Army doesn't want lone wolf Rambos running around ignoring orders.
Exactly. So they implemented the rules of engagement directly into the code. You have an honor score. If you act like a typical gamer, shooting wildly, hitting civilians, or, fragging your teammates, your honor drops.
And if it drops too low,
you get kicked out, banned from the servers.
You're literally fired from the game for bad discipline.
You have to play by the Army's values to participate. They designed the map so you need covering fire. You cannot succeed alone. So, without realizing it, teenagers were being conditioned into military doctrine, teamwork, discipline, before they ever spoke to a recruiter.
There's another psychological trick the authors mentioned that I found fascinating. The perspective shift.
Oh, the opposing force mechanic, yes. In multiplayer, you have two teams. But here's the trick. No matter which team you're actually on, you see yourself as the American soldier. And to you, the other team always looks like the enemy. To them, you look like the enemy.
So nobody ever has to roleplay as the bad guy.
Right. It maintains a singular worldview. You are always the hero. You are always the U.S. Army.
That is incredibly clever and, honestly, a little dystopian.
It sparked massive controversy. The source details protests where veterans were chanting, "War is not a game." There are deep ethical questions about using a teen-rated game to gamify lethal combat for 13-year-olds. The authors present this impartially, but they make it clear. This game changed the landscape.
From a utility standpoint, it was a masterpiece. It proved the concept works.
Yeah.
But now, the U.S. isn't the only player here. The book contrasts this Hollywood-style approach with what's happening in Europe, and the vibe is very different.
Very different. If the U.S. approach is action movie, the European approach, specifically the British, is more psychological thriller.
Right.
The British Army released Start Thinking Soldier.
Even the name is less aggressive. It's
Yeah.
not America's Army, it's Start Thinking.
And it focuses on the cognitive load of leadership. It is not about how fast you can click a mouse. It uses these hyper-realistic video sequences. You're on patrol, tension is high, you're interacting with your squad, and suddenly the video freezes.
And you have to make a choice.
A split-second choice, like a choose-your-own-adventure, but with life or death stakes.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you storm the building? Do you wait for intel? And you have teammates screaming at you. It simulates the stress of decision-making. They aren't looking for the kid with the best aim. They're filtering for the kid who can keep cool under pressure.
Then you have the French. And I have to say, my favorite anecdote in the entire book comes from the French Army. The story of Operation French Point.
The ultimate budget hack.
It's brilliant. So we established that professional military simulators cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per station.
Easily. It's proprietary hardware, custom software, maintenance. It adds up.
So the French Army looks at this and says, no. They go to the store, buy a commercial game called Operation Flashpoint, which was a popular tactical shooter, and they find a mod made by fans that adds French uniforms and weapons.
They essentially piggybacked on the hobbyist community.
And they just use that. The book breaks down the cost. A professional simulator station costs an astronomical amount. the Operation French Point solution, roughly €140 per station.
And the authors note that the €140 included the price of the mouse.
It's so efficient,
Yeah.
but it makes a serious point, right? You don't always need to build a serious game from scratch.
And this is a key distinction the authors make between serious games and serious gaming. America's Army is a serious game built from the ground up for a purpose.
Ooh.
Operation French Point is serious gaming taking an existing game and hijacking it for a new purpose. It's about the usage, not the initial design.
We see this in education all the time.
All the time. A history teacher using Lords of the Realm 2 to teach feudal systems, or, and I love this one, using SingStar, the karaoke game, to teach English pronunciation to French students.
That's genius. The game thinks it's judging your singing ability, but the teacher's using it to judge your phonetics.
It is a classic example of determinant repurposing a tool. It shows the value isn't just in the code, but in the context.
Okay, so we've covered the military using games to recruit and train. That's the defense sector. But the authors move into the humanitarian and science sectors, and the tone shifts completely. We go from destroying the enemy to saving the world.
It is a lighter yet equally high-stakes environment. A great example here is Stop Disasters. This is a game distributed by the UNSTR, the International Strategy for Disaster Reduction.
A catchy title?
It is direct. The premise is like SimCity, but with impending doom. You manage a village, you know a disaster is coming, a tsunami, an earthquake, a wildfire. You have a limited budget and a limited time to prepare.
So you can't just build a giant concrete wall around the whole town and call it a day?
You could, but then you'd have no money left for schools or hospitals, and the population would, hate you or leave. You have to balance physical defenses, like planting mangrove swamps to slow down water, with social needs.
And then the disaster hits.
The game simulates the destruction. You watch to see if your preparations held up. You count the casualties.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. But that is the point. It generates empathy. It teaches the player that disaster management isn't just about sandbags. It's about impossible logistical choices. It transfers the complexity of the real world into a format a kid can understand.
So it's a classic educational game. You play, you learn a lesson, you walk away smarter. But then the authors introduce a concept that honestly blew my mind. The data game.
This is the frontier. This is where we stop just transferring knowledge to the player and start extracting knowledge from the player.
And the prime example is Foldit.
Foldit is legendary in this space, developed by the University of Washington. On the surface, it looks like a strange puzzle game. You have these weird, colorful, twisted 3D tube structures, and you have to manipulate them, pull them, and twist them to make them more compact.
But they aren't just random shapes from an artist.
No, they're proteins. In biology, the shape of a protein dictates what it does, how it interacts with drugs, how it causes disease. But figuring out that shape-folding the protein is mathematically incredibly difficult.
So why can't computers just do it? They're good at math.
They're good at calculation, but bad at spatial intuition. A computer has to brute force every possible combination, which takes forever, but the human brain. We're evolutionarily wired to recognize patterns. We look at a knot and instinctively know how to loosen it.
So Foldit crowdsourced this. They gave the protein models to gamers.
And the results were shocking. The book highlights a specific case involving an enzyme related to the AIDS virus. Scientists have been trying to decipher its structure for 10 years.
Decades.
They were completely stuck. They released it on Foldit. The gamers solved it in 3 weeks.
That gives me chills. 3 weeks.
Just by playing. Most of these players had no background in biochemistry. They were just trying to get a high score. But by optimizing the shape on the screen, they were doing high-level scientific research.
It reframes the whole concept of a gamer. You're not just a consumer of entertainment. You're a node in a massive, distributed supercomputer.
Exactly. It's the utility scenario of data collection. We see it with Google, too. You know, the Google image labeler.
Is that the one where you match words to pictures?
Yes. You're paired with a partner. You both see an image. You type words to describe it. As soon as you match, you get points. It's fun. It's fast. But what you're actually doing is labeling Google's database to train their search algorithms.
You're working for Google for free and enjoying it.
You're trading your cognitive labor for entertainment. It's a brilliant exchange. The game provides the motivation. The player provides the intelligence.
We've talked about games supporting the status quo armies, Google, the UN. But the book also touches on the flip side, the modding scene, and how people use serious gaming to protest.
This is crucial because it shows the medium is neutral. The technology can be used for anything. The standout example here is Escape from Woomera.
This was a mod for Half-Life, right? The sci-fi shooter?
Correct. A group of activists took the Half-Life engine, the same code used to blast aliens, and used it to build a simulation of a controversial refugee detention center in Australia. Woomera.
So instead of fighting monsters, you're playing as a refugee.
And it is not fun in the traditional sense. It's bleak, it is frustrating, you face bureaucracy, hopelessness, confined spaces. The goal wasn't to entertain, it was to let the player experience the harsh reality of that detention center from the inside.
An empathy machine.
It's political commentary. It proved that video games could be just as expressive and biting as a documentary or a political cartoon. It showed that serious gaming can come from the bottom up, not just from governments or corporations.
So pulling this all together, we've gone from Pac-Man to protein folding, from recruiting soldiers to protesting human rights abuses. What's the big takeaway from Alvarez and Jody's work?
I think the core message is that we have to stop looking at video games as a niche or a fad. That is 1980s thinking. The medium has matured. It is now a dominant cultural force.
That's just everywhere.
It's multi-generational. You have kids learning math on tablets, soldiers training in virtual reality, and as the book mentions, seniors in retirement homes using the Nintendo Wii for physical therapy. The video game is just a tool.
Like the printing press or the camera?
Precisely. And like any tool, the question is, what are we building with it? We're entering an era of utilitarian scenarios. We're realizing that the human engagement games generate that flow state where you lose track of time is a resource that can be harvested.
Which brings me to the thought I want to leave our listeners with today. We talked about the data game. We talked about folded and curing diseases.
The potential there is staggering.
So if we can get millions of people to obsess over rearranging shapes to cure AIDS, what else could we solve? Could we gamify economic policy? Could we crowdsource solutions for climate change?
It's the ultimate question. There are billions of hours of human cognitive energy spent on games every year. Currently, most of that energy is spent saving virtual princesses or shooting virtual aliens.
But if you can align that energy with a real-world problem,
Then you change the world. You turn work into play, and you unlock a problem-solving engine that no AI can match yet.
so the next time you boot up a game, just tell yourself you're keeping your pattern recognition skills sharp for the next global crisis.
Or just tell people you are engaging in a complex utilitarian scenario. See if that gets you out of doing the dishes.
I'm sure that'll go over great. A huge thanks to the work of Julian Alvarez and Damien Jowdy for guiding us through this ecosystem. Introduction to a Serious Game is a dense read, but absolutely worth it if you want to understand the future of this medium.
It is the essential text on the subject.
And thanks to you for listening to this deep dive. Keep playing, keep thinking, and we'll catch you next time.